broke.
You didn't break. You didn't break.
I shut down. The moment everybody needed me the most, I wasn't there. Couldn't do it. I choked.
For what? For 40 seconds? 3 minutes? 10 minutes? So f***ing what? We all have that. That is what happens when you're in a war and nothing makes sense.
How worried were you? You know,
Very, very worried.
that's probably right. You know, I think, you know, to make that moment truthful, why did somebody step out to the edge of a roof, you know, unless they're absolutely contemplating what it would be like to step off of it. And who knows whether or not he was just flirting with it the way that Jack Abbott does, or if he was going to take it a step farther. When we blocked it, I intentionally made sure that I got closer to the edge than Shawn had been, to make that point. And who knows if Abbott hadn't shown up, where that scene would have gone. Shared experience, you know, time in, similar suppressed trauma, similar sense of dedication and service. Kind of both lone wolves to an extent, you know, slightly antisocial. So it's a little bit like Wound, recognizing Wound. And there's a fraternal quality, you know, to people who serve in combat or serve in the trenches together. And that is something I think that he and Robbie share. And we wanted that to be evident in just the very few moments that we have together in the very beginning of the season, so that you really feel when he shows back up, okay, you know, these guys are going to be working as a team, because they work well as a team. And I love working with Shawn. He and I have a real natural rapport with each other as men and as actors. So I loved getting to play with him and bringing the symmetry of the season, you know, back, having him be the one that comes out who's been in combat, who understands how the brain can absolutely, for self-survival purposes, unhinge itself from its reality for periods of time when you can't make sense of the senseless. And that monologue, I think, is extremely profound. And the fact that Abbott's in therapy and seemingly on a road to recovery is potentially a, you know, a ladder being extended to Robbie to climb.
Just because of Abbott's experience in combat, and you know, he's a guy that can identify combat fatigue, but having spent so much time as a colleague with Robbie, he knows that it's fleeting, you know, and he'll get through it. And I think he even says it in the moment. It's like, yeah, we're human, right? It's like 30 seconds or 10 minutes. We come back because that's what we do. We're the bees that protect the hive. And I think Abbott identifies in himself that, you know, that's what his purpose is, to these particular situations where there's an emergency, mass casualty event is where he thrives. That's where his talent is. But Robbie is obviously an equal in that world.
For a show that shoots completely in sequence in real time, it was a little odd to shoot the end of the show in September. We went to Pittsburgh for about 4 days of filming in September, so that the weather would match, because if we'd gone now, it would have been not September. But we didn't really have episodes. I don't know when we went, but we were probably 4 or 5 episodes into it when we went, and we were shooting stuff from 15 that had not been written and not really been broken. We knew that there was going to be a mass casualty event. We knew it was going to be horrific, but the specifics of what I'm referring to in that scene were, you know, real placeholder stuff. There's a reference to me having given a speech, and I remember turning to Scott and saying, I can't wait to hear that speech. And he said, I can't wait to write that speech. And amazingly, in the way that sometimes synchronistically things just come together, we figured out a way of building our narrative to get to that and have that feel like a perfectly earned landing strip for the plane. That and the park scene at the very end of 15 as well. That was the last thing we shot in Pittsburgh on our last night there, but it was shot so prematurely to what any of those characters had gone through up to that point that it's a testament to their abilities that they were able to imagine circumstances to the degree that they did.
When you work in episodic TV, sometimes you have to do a scene that's in the end of the movie. Just little things in that scene, like, hey, that was a hell of a speech he gave down there. I remember Scott was there and I said, well, what did he say in the speech? And Scott said, I have no idea. I haven't written that yet. But I could imagine it in my mind that it's just not something that Abbott would want to have to say. And Robbie's the kind of guy that leads, and he's so many things to this staff. He's a father figure. He's a teacher. He's incredibly adept and compassionate. So it was fun, man. I gotta say, like, just having come up in the world of John Wells, television since ER, Southland, Animal Kingdom, and now the Pit. Doing that scene with Noah up there, with John directing, it was a very powerful moment for me. Kind of a full circle one.
I think that's not easy for him to do, I think he works really hard to not be vulnerable. I think he works really hard to be strong for other people, whether that be his patients, whether that be his wife, his kids, whether that, in that earlier scene with Robbie, when, Robbie's falling apart across the way, like, I'll be strong for you, and I can help you. And this is the moment when he's like, I can't be strong for anybody. I can't be strong right now. I need help. And that's a really difficult thing for anyone to say. I think that's a very difficult thing for someone who is in the wood chipper of addiction,
I read that scene and I thought of the scene as being from his perspective, and that it was like, it's his story, and that all he's getting from me is, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to go home. And I kind of had it on that level. And John is so wonderful, John Wells, and so processy. And when we got in there and started working on it, I realized, because I love him so much, because I love Langdon so much, that his problem becomes my problem, And it's like, I'm mad at him because he disappointed me, and I want to vouch for him. And you got to realize, these kids, these residents, like, he's easily been with me 6 years, probably the last 2 years of medical school, then another 4 years. He is like a kid to me, like he's like my little cousin or something, or my little nephew. So yeah, I do want to vouch for him, but I'm just so disappointed, and when he's saying he doesn't have a problem, one of John's notes was like, do you believe him? Stuff like that. John asks you these questions to ask yourself. It's great. It's great. I loved filming that scene.
So did you believe him?
No. And part of it was that he was just lying to me, and then that's really disappointing, because it's like, now I gotta let you go. But I love the line, like, whatever it is, you'll figure it out, talk to him, you're gonna figure it out. Because I had a little friend like that had some, stuff happen, and she really had to pull herself up by her bootstraps. And I realized, as an older friend, she's like a little sister to me. My job wasn't to rescue her. My job was to tell her, you can do it. Like, you can do it. Like with Langdon, what I was thinking was, you don't need to kill yourself. You know what I mean? You can get out of this. You can figure this out. Robbie will help you, and you can figure this out.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to like we were just talking about with that scene with Dana, is it's awful. It's an awful thing to say, to come back and threaten Robbie, to somewhat extort Robbie. But I cannot lose this job. And I will not lose this job. I will not allow this moment to take, if I get fired and I have to go home to my wife and kids and tell them that I'm a drug addict and I've lost my job, my life is over. I'm not gonna let my life be over. By hook or by crook, I'm not going down. So I think there's an incredible soul price that is paid in that moment. And I don't think Langdon goes into that conversation planning to pull the gun out from underneath the table. But I just think when faced with the reality of what it's going to mean to go to rehab and to be put on leave and to be monitored for 5 years, what that's going to mean for him professionally. Like, again, if this goes on Langdon's record, not only do I lose this job, but I'm not going to be able to get another job. And right now, I'm a very high functioning addict. I'm a doctor. I make good money. I have a house. I have a family. You know what an addict looks like without a house and a family and without a good job? That's what he's looking at. And that's not going to happen. Yeah, I think it's incredibly brutal to have him be disappointed in me. And it feels like a betrayal, just like it did in the moment in episode 10 of like, it's very Southern, it's a very Southern thing to say, I think Aunt Carol, I think she probably drinks too much while you're sitting there with a glass of scotch in your hand, and it's like, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, he's looking at me in saying, you're a mess, you're falling apart. And this is my friend. This is somebody that like, I thought we had a mutual understanding of the price that is paid every day in doing this job and knew how to support each other, knowing that we both carry a burden and we carry it well for other people. And now all of a sudden he's saying, you're too much. And I'm saying, I'm too much. I'm too much. Well, I'm not the only one here. I'm not the only one going through this. And if you are going to pretend that you are fine while, hanging me out to dry, no. And also I think there is, I think there's a hospital administrator wandering around that I think would probably be pretty interested in the fact that he's having a mental breakdown in peds. So if he's going to rat me out and ruin my life, I think there is to some degree insinuation of like mutually assured destruction there,
I was thinking about that last night because, as you know, we're writing the second season, and I was thinking about that relationship and thinking that there's a distinction to be made between what Robbie has to do professionally to welcome him back into the environment, and then the other side of that would be what he would need to do to get back into his personal good graces, and how much harder that would probably be.
It was really hard. It was the last scene for me. We shot it on my last day. It was an exterior, so it was late at night, and John was directing that episode. So it was really the end of the trail. And, at that point, we didn't know if we were going to get picked up. If we did get picked up, I didn't know if I was going to be in it. And so it was really, truly the end of the trail. And so it was just a lot of emotions flying around. And it was just like, I want to get emotional just thinking about it. It was just like, it was really special. And John and Noah were just really incredible. And as soon as it was over, Noah comes up to me and like gives me a big hug, and John comes up and gives me a big hug, and they clap. It was just like, it was really nice.
Yeah, I had sort of assumed when I made the reference to it that it was going to be more like catching him on camera in a weak moment or on a hot mic, having a little bit of a Howard Beale rant, and it ended up being much more intimate. It was a debrief to the troops at the end of the shift, to the day shift that are about to go home, and they just want to go home. They're not really even interested in hearing a speech. But it's a little bit of like, everything's about release. Everything's about not carrying it. So he has a little bit of a breakdown, and then he just wants to tell everybody he really appreciates what they're doing, put the energy on them, really inspire a sense of competency and pride in the troops. And in doing so, I think he just is unable any longer to have any kind of filter to his interior life, and it just comes out, embarrassingly so, but at the same time he sort of spins that and says, this display of emotion you're seeing is something we should all probably engage in because it's healthy, and at the end of the day it's nothing more than just grief coming off of the body. You don't put a value judgment on it. It doesn't make you weak. It just makes you human.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, Noah's so great and so gritty and so emotional, and he's just such a wonderful actor. It was great. For me, I felt like if you would, they're not going to play everything on me, but I remember my action was just like, yep, and we're done. Like, I didn't want to feel anything. So for Dana, I didn't want to feel anything. And he's so emotional and he's so raw. So it was just like, oh, I can't feel anything, and just trying to like push it down, because also I know I'm going to go. And if I let myself feel much, I was going to be a basket case.
I was just blown away by watching Noah deliver that speech. And, there's 20 actors in it. There's obviously the core group of background, but and nurses, medical staff. But so when you have a scene that big, you are covering it. He's probably had to do the speech 15, 20 times, various angles. And I've been there, I've done that before, but it just blew me away how he delivered an emotional, heart-wrenching performance every fucking time. Like, I can't. It's just so impressive, and my hat's off to him. He's just an incredibly talented dude, and it was remarkable to watch.